Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. 14 years ago, Barack Obama and Joe Biden healed the planet and slowed the rise of the seas.
And I am absolutely certain that generations from now, we will be able to look back and tell our children that this was the moment when we began to provide care for the sick and good jobs to the jobless. This was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal.
But on the last day of the Obama presidency in 2016, his administration issued a troubling report about rising seas. Obama is so worried about rising sea levels that he purchased this beach home valued at $20 million in Massachusetts. And he purchased this $10 million beach home in Hawaii. It's pretty amazing how many multi-million-dollar mansions you can purchase on a $300,000 salary. But 14 years after healing the planet, Joe Biden is about to declare a climate emergency. He's going to do this under the sage advice of experts like Alexandria Cortez and the Washington Post. And the experts at the New York Times say it's time to panic about climate change. Apparently, a few hours of hot weather over 1% of the planet in Western Europe today pushed Joe Biden over the edge. According to Joe Biden and his friends, the climate is controlled by the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And over the last 70 years, CO2 emissions have been skyrocketing. Let's take a look and see what that's done to the planet. According to NASA, the increase in carbon dioxide has made Earth much greener. According to Oxford University, the death rate from all types of natural disasters is down 95% over the past century. This includes meteorological and climate events, drought, wildfires, storms, and flooding. Over the past century, average life expectancy has doubled around the world. As the amount of carbon dioxide has increased, corn yields in the United States are up 500%. Over the past 60 years, wheat yields around the world have more than tripled. Malnutrition around the world has dropped sharply over the last 30 years. 1 century ago, 3/4 of the world's population was living in extreme poverty. That number has plummeted down to 10%. Similarly, illiteracy is down from 80% down to about 10%. There isn't one shred of evidence to support the idea that the increase in CO2 over the last century has hurt the human race. Quite the opposite, in fact. Low-cost available energy from fossil fuels has greatly improved the human condition. Now let's go back to the 1920s when the death rate from natural disasters was 20 times higher. In 1921, millions of people around the world were facing death from a record heat wave and drought. Scientists had a number of different theories about what was causing the worldwide upset weather. One theory was that the disastrous heat and drought of the summer were due to our solar system passing through a vast unseen cosmic cloud, coinciding with a time when the sunspots were hottest. There was a massive solar storm from May 13 to 16, 1921. It shut down communications across the country, and the aurora borealis was seen as far south as the Mexico border. 2 weeks later, one of the deadliest floods in U.S. history struck Pueblo, Colorado. And later that year, England had an unprecedented October heat wave with temperatures over 80 degrees. 1921 was the second hottest year in the United States after 1934. What was remarkable about 1921 wasn't so much extremely high temperatures, but rather consistently warm temperatures throughout the year. More than 2/3 of afternoon temperature readings in the United States during 1921 were over 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Prior to data tampering by government agencies, 1921 was the hottest year on record in Texas. 10 years ago, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration showed 1921 as Texas' hottest year. But they have since altered the data to make the heat of 1921 disappear. The New York Times wrote about 1921, freak weather laid to earthly mumps. They said there was a worldwide heat wave of unusual length and intensity. 2 million Koreans starving in Manchuria owing to drought-ruined crops. Drought kills fish in River Seine, and France suffers most severe drought in 47 years. Glaciers in the Swiss Alps were melting due to extraordinarily hot weather. Brussels was running out of water. 110-degree temperatures in Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas. Unheard of high temperatures in the Arctic. Glaciers have entirely disappeared. In 1921, Earth actually was having a climate emergency, but it didn't have anything to do with carbon dioxide. Now let's take a closer look at Biden's climate emergency. Biden says that in 1987 he introduced game-changing legislation for the climate.
You can check PolitiFacts. I introduced the first climate change bill in 1987, say it was a game changer.
This graph shows the growth of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the last 50 years while Joe Biden was in Washington. Joe Biden's game-changing legislation accomplished nothing, and neither did any of the dozens of fake climate agreements he's been involved with over the last 30 years. His climate emergency will also do absolutely nothing to slow the growth of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. What Biden will accomplish, however, is to continue to crush the poor and middle class with high energy prices. And to be fair, that's been Obama and Biden's plan all along.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal-powered plants, natural gas, you name whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
Which takes us back to Obama's $20 million beach home in Massachusetts. He applied for a permit for a 2,500-gallon commercial propane tank for that property. It was the largest private propane tank request they'd ever received, and it was approved by the board. So while the poor and middle class are freezing and starving in the dark this winter, the Obama family is going to be cozy and warm in their mansion on the beach. Perhaps nobody told Barack Obama that propane is a fossil fuel which emits carbon dioxide. Toto's been pulling back the curtain on this evil for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki, and Oopla on the web at realclimatescience.com.